of 2 years on now, and that's slowly beginning to happen. Slowly. Okay, the UK bailout was slightly more complicated. It made even less sense, really, because you've got the Treasury as well as the government, which again is pumping money into the system, as well as the Bank of England. Just as a point to note, most people think national banks are nationalised institutions. The Bank of England is privately owned. The federal bank is also privately owned. Okay, which I find very interesting, because most people think that's under the control of the government. Okay, global action. So, different responses from different areas. In the US we had bailouts, and in the UK, as we've just seen with Northern Rock and Bear Stearns. In Iceland we had nationalisation. Iceland, as you probably have heard, are in real dire straits. I mean, they're so bad that McDonald's has now left the country. Did you guys read about that? Yeah, McDonald's decided that the price of a Big Mac had doubled. Nobody was buying Big Mac, so they've gone. So Iceland's, I mean, it's very interesting, the perspective of a country based upon this whole thing. Prior to the credit crunch, Iceland was being put forward as the model economy. They were getting out there like stereotypical Vikings, buying up industries across the world. In the UK, they actually bought Iceland's, which is a bit ironic. They bought supermarket chains. They're incredibly entrepreneurial. But now you've got people in the streets literally wanting to hang the government. People really not able to afford their repayments. A country which is on the verge of bankruptcy. Deposit guarantees. Again, very, very interesting about the cohesive nature of unions. The European Union has this policy of not competing with one another on a financial basis. So, therefore, you're not really supposed to do what Ireland did, which is offer deposit guarantee. Everyone was shaky, right? Do you guys remember? Has anybody got any money as a student anyway? It was a bit shaky. Deposits were not guaranteed. People didn't know where to put their money. So Ireland came out and said, actually, you know what? We'll guarantee deposits. And there was uproar at the EU, because you're not supposed to do that. Because that means money is lifted out of other economies and put into Ireland. And that's not the way a union's meant to work. So then you found that Germany said that they weren't going to guarantee it, but then they decided to. And you had Belgium, Spain, Greece all deciding to do the same. So it was pretty much every country for itself. It really showed some significant cracks in the union. Extra government funding was provided in Russia, and in Australia, interestingly, they cut interest rates in order to increase productivity and really to try and get people motivated and working. Okay, stock market analysis. Doesn't really need analysing, really, does it? It only goes in one direction. That's the Nikkei, Dow Jones, and the FTSE. Okay, and it's fair to say that the credit crunch has affected general knowledge as well. Does anybody like to answer the question? Reykjavik? It's about £3.50. There have been some upsides to this. This is a chap we're no longer likely to see on our screens for a while. But in all seriousness, looking at a snapshot of how banks are doing at this moment in time as of June 2009, if we go back to 2007, we've got HSBC in gold, interestingly in gold, probably fool's gold. Barclays in blue, RBS in green, and Northern Rock in purple. If we look at that, in June everyone's doing okay. Northern Rock, by the way, was massively exposed to the mortgage market, which is why it was more affected than others. June 2008, we have RBS and Northern Rock in pretty dire straits. And as of June 2009, we can see that Barclays and HSBC are still maintaining profits, but not, almost, HSBC almost half of what they were making. We've got RBS, which is pretty much at par, and we've got Lloyds, RBS and Lloyds, which have been nationalised along with Northern Rock. They're still uncovering toxic debt right now. So it's difficult to say where all of this is going. Hands up, who actually feels affected by this credit crunch? One person? Two person? Three people? Thinking about it? Anybody else? So most people don't actually feel that affected. It's true. I mean, it's something that's going on. But I suppose if you're in the middle of studying, you're quite used to being in debt anyway. But in the markets that we work in, there's a difference between the way 1E does business and the way the conventional private equity market does business. Because what tends to happen is a group of bankers who worked in private equity, who've got good connection with financial institutions, go to the Middle East and say, excuse me, Mr. Sheikh, yeah, can we have £100 million to manage in order to make some money? And the Sheikh says, let me consult my consultants, and he basically asks his brothers, yeah, shall I offer these guys the money? They say, well, yeah, they're bankers and they're from the UK. So he gives them 100, and then off the back of the 100, the private equity guys go off to the banks and say, look, we've got 100 million, can we have 10 times that amount? So we've got $1 billion perhaps, yeah? And then they use that billion for investment purposes. And they'll use that billion to, say, fund the expansion of Starbucks, or of Costa Coffee, or of these huge these huge brands, which is why when you go into every high street now, none of it's personalized. None of it's individual. None of it has value. None of it has any love. It's just money. And this isn't a left-wing rant. This is just the way it is. You guys probably feel it too. Yeah? You go from one place to the other, it's all the same. And this is driven by the type of finance we have and the power that finance affords the banking fraternity. But we're not going to blame them just yet. Okay, so who is to blame? Nice little link there. Okay, I need more interaction, guys. Yeah, not just from our friend over here. So your name?
Wells.
Wells.
Yeah.
Wells. Wells is doing it for everybody at the moment. Okay, and guys at the back, I'm notorious for picking on people at the back here. You know, cool scarves and hats apart. You know, I'll be asking you questions. Right. So, Alan Greenspan. You know who he is? Do we know who Alan Greenspan is? He was the head of the Federal Bank in America for 20 years. The most powerful individual on earth. Yeah? Why was he powerful? Because he could affect interest rates, he could affect lending. That's what money affords you, power. Now, why would we blame Alan Greenspan? Why is it his fault? Anybody want to offer a suggestion?
He should have seen it coming. He should have seen it coming.
But he should have seen it coming? Deregulated? Okay. That's interesting. That's down to somebody else.
No.
Yes, sir.
Low interest rates for most of his term.
Perfect. Okay. Do you do finance?
No.
Okay. I just asked that question at the beginning, and you came in a bit later, right? Okay. No problem. Yeah, that's kind of the main point. He pretty much lowered interest rates. What's the purpose of the Federal Bank or the Bank of England? It's really there to monitor interest rates in order to combat inflation. Yeah? So we'll talk about that later. But Alan Greenspan, he pretty much lowered the rate that banks could borrow money from its bank, from the Federal Bank. So it basically placed a lump of money into the hands of financial institutions and said, here you go. Right, now go and make some money with it. Okay? So what do you think the banks were going to do? Say, no, it's okay, we've got enough, thanks? Or say, right, okay, our bankers who have studied at Oxford and Cambridge and Harvard, yeah, we need you guys to come up with financial products which nobody can understand, yeah, which we can sell in order to generate further profits. Can you do that? And that's exactly what happened. Can you find new markets? Oh yeah, these guys, they just really want money. They can't afford anything though, but they really want the money. So if we can give them money, and then we can get rid of the risk by selling it on, by attaching like strong, low risk factors to it, I think that'll do it for us. So that's pretty much what the banks did. Alan Greenspan, as the head of this, if you watch some of his latest interviews, he's a broken man. He's a fundamentalist, free capitalist type individual. I'm not a communist, by the way. Yeah? But he is a fundamentalist free capitalist. And he says, and I quote, the system we have is not perfect. And what we've experienced will happen again. But it's the best we have. That's quite a frightening analysis, I think. Okay. Clever bankers.